Let me know if you can't hear me. Just a little bit about me. I also run the rat control program for the province, so I'm sometimes known as the rat lady. And I'll be here for the rest of the day if you want to come and chat with me about rats at all or our program in Alberta. And I also do run the coyote predation management program. So I essentially look after the registration of compound 1080. That's the predicide we have available for coyote control in the province. And yeah, so that is also something I look after. I work out of Airdrie and Olds. I kind of go between. I do have an assistant, Garrett Gerlitz, who just started in last June, which is great. And then I also have a colleague, Hannah McKenzie, who is the wild boar program specialist for the province. So I can certainly chat with you a bit about wild boar as well if anybody has questions about that. But I'll just get on to talking about the Richardson ground squirrels, or gophers, as we commonly call them. And today, I'm going to go over kind of their status and importance first. We'll talk life cycle reproduction, which is very important to understand for control purposes. We'll get into control options, basically the chemical, non-chemical, and then I'll talk about the strychnine alternatives evaluation that we did a couple of years ago in the MD of Willow Creek. And I see Ryan's here. Hi, Ryan. All right, so they have many different names, of course. We call them gophers most commonly, not to be confused with pocket gophers. Yellow gopher, Dakota rat, I think is another one. I've heard probably more down in the US. And of course, they are native. They're a native species, and they're very important to our ecosystem here in southern Alberta. In Alberta, they are considered a nuisance under the Agricultural Pests Act. So people can choose to control them on their property if they want to. You can also give permission to other people to come onto your property and control them. Bit different from, say, something like a rat, a Norway, or a roof rat, which are considered a pest, and people are required to control them. I was doing a bit of research too on kind of the history of Richardson ground squirrel in Alberta, but I came across in Manitoba, I guess 100 years ago, they offered a 3-cent bounty on them. So kind of goes back a few years, but even 100 years ago, they were still a nuisance for sure. And some other things about them, they're semi-fossorial, so they spend most of their time underground, but they do come above ground, as we know, for about 4 months of the year on average. And as far as their social groups, they live in groups with other females, so the female raise the young, the males are not involved in the rearing at all. Now, we'll talk about the life cycle and reproduction more about them. So males, they generally appear the last week of February, maybe even mid-February down here, depending on how cold it is, how much snow there is out there. The first 2 weeks, they're up and fighting for their territory. So there's a lot of entertaining fights going on out in the fields between the males. They're not really eating at this point. They're living off their body reserves, their fat. And as far as hibernation, and I've got a really good diagram of the sexes and life stage coming up to show you when they're above ground and when they go below. But the adult males usually go below ground kind of at the end of June into July. And of course, males, they seldom live past 3 years because they're generally those ones when you're driving down the road and hear the thud thud, those are the males you're getting. And then as far as the females, they emerge about 2 weeks after the males emerge. So really when you start to think about control, that's your optimum time for control. You want to wait for those females to get up there. You want to get those breeding adults. They breed immediately. They don't eat much. So they basically wake up from hibernation and the next day emerge. And gestation, 23 to 27 days. Litter size varies, 6 to 8 young in general, and it's always 1 litter per year. They don't have multiple, it's always 1. And females are fertile for only 1 afternoon of the whole year. So they mate with multiple different males, or can. So everybody kind of has a magical afternoon at that point. Females can live around 4 to 6 years. Usually their home range during the summer is about 20 to 40 square meters. The females, as I said, rear the litters themselves. Generally, it's the male pups that they kick out first. So depending on what the home range kind of burrow, the area and the burrow of the female. The males get kicked further afield, and the female kin pups tend to stay closer to the mom. And here I've got a photo of a burrow system. I'll talk a bit about that. As we know, they spend most of their time underground. They're above ground on average for 4 months of the year, and strictly a daytime rodent. Up first thing in the morning, kind of midday, and then 4 p.m. to sunset. You'll see them. Optimum time for getting out there and shooting them. And adult females each have their own burrow system, and it can have 3 to 5 entrances, sometimes up to 5 to 10. And they always have chambers they'll have a chamber where they're nursing and rearing the young. They'll have a chamber where they urinate and defecate, and one for their food cache for hibernating. And burrows can vary. I'll just go, there. Sorry. Not used to doing. Oh, I guess I have this too, right? I can use this. Burrows vary from 12 feet to, they can be up to over 40 feet as well, and can be 2.5 to 8 feet deep in the ground too. And then hibernation we'll talk about, if I can. There. I just have to move the cursor over. They're obligate hibernators, which means that they will hibernate regardless of temperatures, weather, and access to food. So they start to begin bouts in late summer when the temperatures start to decrease and the days get shorter. And during this time, in their burrows, they've stored lots of caches of food, but the main purpose is to conserve their body fat so that when they go into a state of torpor where their heart rate and their temperature decreases over winter, they're able to survive the winter. And this is the kind of chart I was talking about, where you can see the different life stages and their activity by sex. So I have the adult males up there. You can see they, depending where you are in the province and the weather, they might come up mid-February, sometime in February, and they're active generally to the end of June, at which point they go underneath to hibernate. The females, the adult females come up, 2 weeks after the males. So certainly, it might be around the 1st of March to the end of July. And then the juvenile males and females emerge at the same time after they finish nursing. And you can see the juvenile males can stay up until, almost November, if we have a really warm fall. And the juvenile females go underground kind of around the end of August to hibernate. So that red box I have in there, that I'm indicating there the optimum time for control. Again, you want to take out those breeding adults before the females go underground to rear the young. So to basically have the babies and nurse and rear the young. And before green up too, because once the crops start coming out of the ground, they're going to be more inclined to eat those crops than any bait that you put out. Now, we'll get into some talk about control, integrated pest management. So when you need to control a nuisance or a pest, you always have to look at, make some decisions about the optimum time, what tools to use, and what are your options for control? So it's really kind of a decision-making process. So you want to look at the benefits and damage that different types of control can do to the environment. Hazards to non-targets, I mean, that's something we always have to consider. We all live together here, and you certainly don't want to put any risk to our ecosystem, the birds, any mammals as well, and ourselves when you do look at what type of control you want to use. What's the most cost effective for your time, and when is it most cost effective for you to treat? And something that's compatible with agronomic practices. So non-chemical and chemical are our options for control. Shooting and trapping, certainly, trapping, if you're trying to do a large area of land, that's not effective of your time. Shooting, you can have some reasonable success if you're starting early in the season and can take out those breeding adults. And then it depends what your tolerance of predators are. I know there's some talk of badgers here. Badgers are actually really good in the winter. They come along and will eat the ground squirrels while they're hibernating. So something to consider there. But keeping like the vegetation tall around crops will encourage predators. So coyotes, foxes, weasels as well. You know, their diet consists a lot mainly of ground squirrels in the, you know, in the summer. So definitely consider that, or around, keep the vegetation along fence lines. Things like, you know, when you're seeding, if some grain is spilled on the ground, clean it up, because I mean, you're offering a buffet to ground squirrels as well. So just giving them food. Chemical, when we look at at that. So there's a few different products available on the market. Of course, strychnine is not available anymore. And I have a slide on that to chat about it. But we have chlorofascinone, which is Rosol. This is a multi-feed product. It's an anticoagulant. So multiple feeding. The big thing with this, if you do put this product out, you do need to be out within 48 hours to replenish it, because they need to have access to more treated product for the product to work. Difascinone is Ramet Green. This is a pebble. So again, it's one of those products that might not be palatable to the ground squirrels once the crop starts to come up. And again, it's a multi-feed anticoagulant as well. So they need to have enough product out. And these two products are really good used in bait stations as well. It's nice to go out and just see where, if the bait station has been fed on, you can top it up. And if it hasn't, maybe move it around to a hole where you see more activity. And then zinc phosphide. A lot of people are interested in the zinc phosphide products, and zinc phosphide has been around since the 1940s. So it's an older product, but it is a single feed product, and they do die fairly quickly from it. It's how it works is that the product, when they go for ingest it, the ground squirrel ingests it, it reacts with the moisture in the gut and produces a phosphine gas, which asphyxiates them. So they die fairly quickly from that. And then getting into some other options, and I'll talk a bit more about ZP in a second here. Fuzz toxin, it's an aluminum phosphite. It's a fumigant. You do need a special applicator license to use this product. It is very dangerous, though, to humans and other mammals as well. So it's placed in the hole, and it kind of reacts and produces a gas in the burrows. And then Rocon, I know there's people here, I think, who work for some of the municipalities that have experience with this as well. It's a white mustard seed powder that makes into a foam. You do have to have specialized equipment for it, and it's a bit more labor intensive, but it's not toxic, so which is good for the other critters out there in the field that may be in the burrows as well. And just a couple of things then, when we're talking about the two anticoagulants, so the Rosol and the Ramet Green, when you're putting them out, so if you're putting them out, say in a pasture where you have legumes, they have vitamin K, which is an antidote to an anticoagulant. So something to consider with those. They won't work then or be effective. Secondary poisonings can be high with these products, so it's really important to get out and pick up any dead carcasses if you see them. And so residues, when this product is placed in the ground, and if the grain stays there and it's not eaten, you know, it can be poisonous to birds and other mammals that could be accessing the burrow systems. Whereas with the zinc phosphide baits, the residue is limited, because if the product is placed in a burrow and not eaten, when there's a heavy rain, it'll produce that phosphine gas. So it'll gas off, so it won't be, or snow as well. So it won't be as toxic to any other mammals that are out there. But the big thing with the zinc phosphide baits, there's no antidotes for them, and they are hazardous to us. So you really do need to wear PPE, like wear gloves, wear a mask too, if you're dumping it into a pail to distribute it out into the burrows too. And strychnine, you know, there's not much to say. We know we're not able to use it anymore. It was deregistered in March of 2020. And our last day to use it was March 4th of 2023. Saskatchewan, as well as ourselves, submitted letters of objection to the final decision, and that didn't make a difference. The big thing is the strychnine manufacturer Agramax, and I believe they're out of Saskatchewan, let go of their technical registration of the product. So we don't actually have any companies now in Canada that have a technical registration for strychnine. So nobody can make it. A couple other control options that I've come across, have been asked about, and these are more for, smaller areas of land, not ideal for quarters or acres and acres of land. The top left there is the cheetah. So it's a kind of a handheld kind of thing that produces carbon monoxide, and you stick it down in the burrow. So I know some municipalities have used it in kind of, parks or or cemeteries where, people may not, where there's a smaller population and you don't want to put a rodenticide out, essentially. And then the perk, this is a pressurized exhaust rodent control machine. And the MD of Willow Creek actually purchased one last year. And Ryan from the MD, I know he knows a bit about it. He was using it this summer. They were lending it out to ratepayers. Again, carbon monoxide, I think it certainly offers more control and as compared to the cheetah, which is a bit smaller. So yeah, certainly if anybody's interested in talking to him about that, I'm sure he would be happy to. And then the GT 2006 is a gopher trap that I know, again, quite a few municipalities, the city of Edmonton uses them a lot. They buy box loads and box loads. So it's, you just kind of that pointy part, you put in the burrow and it's like a guillotine. And the gopher comes up out of the burrow, sticks its head through the hole, and that V that you see comes down and cervically dislocates the head. So I know a lot of people actually like those. So yeah, and they are available. If you write that down and Google GT 2006, you can find suppliers here in Alberta. And then this is the part where I like to talk about raptors. I have some nice bird photos because certainly we have quite a few raptors in southern Alberta that rely on Richardson ground squirrels. And we'll just talk a bit about, I'll show you some designs for raptor platforms. So here I've got the barn owl. I don't think I've been fortunate enough ever to see one. They're quite beautiful, but you can see the design up here for a nesting box for a barn owl. So if you think that you have some in the area, just something to think about as far as encouraging them to maybe nest in and around your property. And then the ferruginous hawks, we certainly have those in southern Alberta. Their fledglings depend on Richardson ground squirrels to survive. Certainly when they're young, when they're born. The northern harrier, this one is a low flyer and a great ground hunter too. So they offer good control for ground squirrels. And then the American kestrel as well. And then here I have a photo of an artificial nest pole, and I have a few more diagrams coming up, but if you build it, they may come. You have to think about your placement of it. I mean, certainly you don't want it near a major roadway where there's a lot of traffic or near power lines. But one pair of ferruginous nesting hawks can consume up to 500 ground squirrels in a single nesting season. So that's a lot of gophers. And here I borrowed this from my colleague James Tansey in Saskatchewan. He had this in his presentation. He actually, the Saskatchewan Agriculture YouTube channel, James filmed a video of them building one last summer. So it is, if you wanted to check that out, yeah, it's a short 2-minute video. But I also have this diagram too, that back when environment and protected areas was Alberta Environment and Parks, they put out this brochure, which I could certainly email to people about building platforms for ferruginous hawks as well. So just kind of to summarize then, rodenticides, the most effective time to use them for the best control is that 1st of March, probably to April 30th in there, just depending on, when you see the first adult male ground squirrels coming up. And as I said, you don't want to wait because we know the adult males emerge first. You want to wait a couple weeks before you do place out bait. And certainly you do want to bait before grain up though, because you don't want them being more interested in the crop coming up than what you're offering. That helps with bait shyness. And pre-baiting, I know on the zinc phosphide products, they do recommend going around to the active holes and pre-baiting with just untreated oats. That may make them more inclined to eat the treated product when you put it out. And you don't have to bait every hole. Again, you just look for those ones that are active. You can generally tell which ones are pretty busy, which are the ins and outs. And yeah, generally it's 5 meters apart that you need to bait the holes as well. And you want to, much like us, we like to eat fresh food. So do the ground squirrels as well. And I'll just talk about then our strychnine alternatives evaluation that we did in kind with Saskatchewan Agriculture and the MD of Willow Creek. James Tansey approached me and asked me if we would like to participate in the small evaluation. He provided us with cameras and he wrote up the outline of the evaluation, how we would do it. And then he did all the data work as far as taking all our data collected and did all his fancy models and came up with the results, which I'm going to show you. I don't have that background, so it was very great that James was able to do that with us. So really the point of the trial was to compare the efficacy. We were able to, it was the last year of strychnine, the last 2 years of strychnine, so we were still able to obtain the product to use. And we compared it to the 2 zinc phosphide products and then the Rosol and the Ramet Green as well. So we had 6 plots. And so we did 6 plots in total. They were approximately 100 by 100, and we replicated in 3 different areas within the MD. And that photo there shows you, that's Kirby and Murray there from the MD. We had a nice day to go out. I mean, it was a bit windy because it was around Claire's home and it's the spring, so there always is wind. But yeah, we had a beautiful day to go out and set up for this. And then the weather turned for us here in Alberta both years. So I'll just talk a bit about that. So basically, we did some pre-baiting, especially for the zinc phosphide products, and Kirby went out 2 days prior to us actually applying the bait, and he did a baseline count of how many Richard ground squirrels were active in every plot that we had set. So we had a baseline, and then we did the treatment, and then Kirby went out for 7 days more at the same time every day and counted the ground squirrels that came up. Well, it was like 2 degrees out and snowy and windy, so you can imagine we didn't see a lot of ground squirrels, or as many as we could have seen come up. So for us here in Alberta for 22 and 23, you can see we've got the control there. So, that's how many ground squirrels were in the control plot that didn't eat treatment. So they were doing well. And then the numbers definitely did decrease in the treatment plots. And we kind of had the same efficacy for all of them for the first year. And then we can see that strychnine looked to be more effective for the second year. But again, James did his fancy calculations and modeled and everything like that. But like I said, I don't think the results would have been what they could have been if we'd had regular nice spring weather. But in Saskatchewan, they had some interesting results for both years. It looked like the zinc phosphide products had, as good efficacy as the strychnine products too, which is really good and encouraging actually for those products. And then James also did an economic evaluation of the cost of each of the products for at treatment. So the products, Rosol and Ramet Green, would require 2 treatments, so you basically have to double that rate. So you can see that cost-effective wise, the ZP products were less money per treatment than even strychnine. So, and I should mention too, James has done a write-up on Saskatchewan Agriculture's website. If you go to SaskAg and Google Richardson ground squirrels, there's a more in-depth write-up where he talks about the results of this. But this kind of gives you a basic understanding of what we did. So just to wrap up here, things to keep in mind when you are using rodenticides and of course pesticides, but you always have to follow the label. The label is the law. And these products have gone through stringent testing with Health Canada. So if you do follow the label, you will have results with the products. You always want to consider using PPE, like I said, with those zinc phosphide products. You want to wear gloves for sure and face mask too, because of you might inhale the powder. If you are using bait stations, you always want to label them properly as well. And then, like I said, if you find that nobody has been eating the bait in them, you can easily move them around to another area where you've seen more activity. And keep in mind, you're never going to get them all. So if you follow the label and bait at the optimum time, you can definitely put a dent into the population, but unfortunately, you will never get them all. And as I said, timing is key to control. And if you do see carcasses, pick them up because you certainly don't want to risk any non-targets or secondary poisonings as well. Yeah, that's what I had today. I'm happy to answer any questions if anybody has them. Yeah.
So breeding, that's a one-time, very narrow
Yeah.
event.
Yes. One afternoon. I think it just delays them, right? They might come up and go underground, but it might delay the breeding later into the season until there's a warmer day. Well, no. I mean, the females might delay coming up, but I mean, if we've got a stretch of cold weather, in through that February, March, I think that they'll just come up later. If that makes sense, because the females come up and they breed immediately. So if it's cold, they're not gonna come up. If that makes sense. They breed once they're up, but when they come up, yes, yeah. Yeah, so the males come up first, and then about 2 weeks later, the females come up. But I mean, if we get a stretch of cold weather in there, it might delay the females coming up and breeding. Yeah, if that makes sense. It's always weather dependent, right? So yeah, it can be it could be the middle of February if we have really warm weather here and the snow is all gone. Or, if we have one of those springs where we get a lot of snow, late February into March, then they won't come up till later in March, if that makes sense. Yeah. No, they're not welcome. Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm told a little bit. I've talked to the manufacturers. I'm told a little bit of moisture doesn't affect it. I think a very heavy rain would inactivate it. Yeah. Yeah. Or like don't put it in if there's still snow. Like don't use it. Yeah. I think it would be, for this product. And then you can actually see what's being consumed and where the activity is and move them if you can. Yeah. And it protects it. Yeah. 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 So a bait station once with the zinc phosphide, is the a really good effective use of your time. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Yeah. My apologies. Yeah, I think it just settles in that. It's not like those other products I was talking. Sorry, the phosphine gas, will it settle or will it travel through the burrow? And I think it's just kind of in that area. I don't think it's potent enough to like those other products like the Rocon or the aluminum phosphide where you'd be. Well, I think that travels in through it's highly potent. I think it's a tablet that you place in and yeah, to be honest, I don't have any experience with that. What I've read about it is, it's very dangerous, to use. That's why you have to take the fumigant applicator course. Yeah. Oh, I'm not, so are the artificial torpedo trenches, I'm not familiar with. Oh, yeah, so a burrow, a trench that's dug around the outside of the field. I'm not familiar with that, actually. Yeah, yeah. Oh, so I was looking up, so it's like yeah, actually there, is that the, one name for it is the Verminator. I believe yeah. So what I was looking at on the zinc phosphide, I was looking at the labels for all these products I'm talking about this week. That is for use for pocket gophers, not for ground squirrels. It's on the label for. Yeah. Yeah.
So waiting come May, early June, when things are green, the recreation to be out there, or?
You won't make as much of a difference because you probably will be dealing with the juvenile population as well. So your population has greatly increased that you're trying to control. So that's why, yeah, we say ideally, if you can get out when the breeding population, the males, adult males and females are out and knock them down, then you don't have to worry about any babies being born. Yeah. Oh, yes, again, sorry. Yes. I'm not used to this. So baiting later on in the season, kind of May, June, when green up is starting, is not as effective because you're dealing with the babies that are probably going to be emerging out of the burrows at that point. So yeah, you're having to take out 3, 4, 5 times the amount of population as you would have in kind of March, April.
We have an online question.
Yeah.
Do you know the financial numbers in comparison with frost, toxin, and other controls?
Not for fuzz toxin, no. Sorry, I have not done. Oh, I think the microphone went out. Yeah, but I haven't done that. I'm sorry. Yeah, I didn't because it's such a you have to have specialized training. So yeah, I unfortunately no, I haven't done that. Yes, back there. Yeah, and I'm not sure that's approved by Health. So the Gofinator, I don't think is approved by Health Canada. I'd have to just do a little bit more on that, but there's also something called the Gopher Gone, and Keith and I were talking about that. He had sent me that where it is an applicator for zinc. You could use it for zinc phosphide or the other products as well. I'm checking with Health Canada on that as well because it's not something that's on the label. And as with we were just talking about the Verminator, I know that is on the zinc phosphide label for pocket gophers. So before I say that, talk about that, I want to make sure that it's okay with Health Canada, like they. Oh, so yeah, no, those are you can still purchase the ones that you light like little sticks of dynamite for I know you can get them at Canadian Tire, but again, I don't know that they would do a large area of um oh, the city of Calgary uses them in the parks. Okay. Yes, there is a bit of a hazard. You do have to be careful when you use products like that. Yeah. Yeah, and again, so using anhydrous, an applicator for that in the holes, again, very dangerous, and again, not approved by Health Canada. So a product, yeah, using a machine like that is not. Yeah.
I read somewhere last summer that you need 80% control to make a difference.
for a pest. Yeah. Yes, I've seen that as well. Yeah. Um, I guess it depends on the year and the conditions and everything like that, and how well when you treat. I've heard that in reference to kind of like wild boar and those as well. It's like I said in the presentation, like you're never going to get them all, but with a good plan, strategy, and doing it at the optimum time, following the label directions, if you're going to use a rodenticide, you can greatly decrease the numbers. Yeah. It's hard because they're a native species, right? So, they're kind of everywhere. They're never going to go away. We're always going to have them and have to come up with strategies to deal with them. So 80%, yeah, I think is probably accurate.
Sometimes when you're putting out baits or shooting or making an effort, if your neighbors aren't doing it, it feels like you're bailing on the ocean. How far will a pregnant female or a breeding female migrate?
It depends on the population in the field. So, like I said, she kicks out those males first, so they might travel a kilometer or something like that, to a new area to find their own area. The female pups do. Yeah. Yeah. They might have to travel a further distance if there is a higher population, but yeah, the males can travel quite a distance. Yeah. From the home burrow where they were raised. So yeah, they could, if your neighbor has a large population. I think Keith is going to touch on a bit on in the next presentation about, yeah, what if your neighbor has a lot and not doing much control? Well, I'm here for most of the day if people want to chat more too. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yes, yes. Sorry, yeah. Yeah. Oh, I think there's a lady back there who has, yeah. All I know is that they like to eat ground squirrels. So that's, but they are fairly destructive if you do have them in your fields with those big holes. So I think there is going to be, or there is a lady here from Salt. Yes, she is apparently a badger expert. I think, or you can go back to talk to her about that. Sorry. They're not something that I have a lot of knowledge or I can talk to you about control of, unfortunately. Yeah. Yeah. Rats, wild boar, I can. Paul can go for a second. Yeah. I think Mark is going to talk about that this afternoon too. He's going to talk about, yeah, as well, for livestock, right? Yeah, as this afternoon. Yeah. You're going to have your questions answered, I think. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you, everybody.